So, how do you solve an addiction? Part 2. Sorry that I kind of cut you guys off on my previous episode on how to solve an addiction, but here is part 2. I went off subject on the first part quite a bit. But a lot of times when you're going through a problem, when you're going through an addiction of some sort, if, let's say, you know somebody that's constantly drinking, you know somebody that's constantly doing drugs or going out and gambling and shit, what you should do is find out if they really can help themselves. By what I mean is that, do they trust you? Do you trust them? So, if you were to go up to them and ask them, like, hey, I want your money and I want your debit card, I won't spend it, but I want to help you save, will they allow you to do that? And if they allow you to do that, that's when you should step in. And that's when they should allow you to step in too. Especially if they go up to you as well and ask. Especially if they go up to you and ask you for help. Okay, so why was I talking about building a business while solving an addiction? Well, how I was able to quit smoking cigarettes. I was able to quit smoking cigarettes. I was able to quit vaping. I was able to conquer any sort of drinking problem that I may come up with, or somehow start, or end, or whatever. And I was, like, chronically addicted to cigarettes. Almost a pack a day, pretty much. It was nuts. Well, I learned about vaping. And on top of that, I learned about building a business. And this was a while ago, too. I'm not saying, like, all of a sudden I learned this super new magic way of solving a problem. No, that's not what I mean at all. This took a period of time. It did, because I still was craving cigarettes when I was vaping the first time. And the problem was I needed to be able to focus my mind elsewhere. Instead of going out and socializing and having a social cigarette, I needed to find that time and use it elsewhere. So, when I was working 8 hours a day at a grocery store a few years back, I had break time, usually had hour lunches. I would spend that time learning how to buy and sell product, how to build a online business. And I'm not gonna lie, I was smoking cigarettes as I was reading into this shit. Not into podcasting directly, but I was reading into how to build an online business. So even though I wasn't attempting to quit at that time, I was still focusing my mind elsewhere. And when I said in the previous episode, I talked about the first day and the second day are the hardest, and usually you should sleep it off. like go to bed immediately to solve the addiction of whatever it is that you're having OCD about. Cigarettes, alcohol, food, shit. You can have an addiction to food. When there was places I couldn't go with my cigarettes because I was buying a fuck ton of product. I was going in warehouses, I was going into pawn shops, but in these places we were allowed to vape for some odd reason, because it wasn't regulated that much at that time. So what I was doing is, or what I did was, I bought the first generation of the vapes. I saw them out recently, but they were using that for the THC, or the weed wax, and they were using that to vape with, and that's what I saw them, saw those old vape pens being used for. But when they first came out, I think it was like 2011 or 2012, that's when I started to get into them. And so, even though I was still trading some cigarettes for my vape pen, I was still focusing my mind on building a business. And I do have a track record. I still kept my balance sheets. I'd show everybody it, but I'm not that type of person of what I did. And what I did was I sold on Amazon. I was buying massive amounts of products for a discounted price, and I'd flip it for more. And that was getting my boost. That was getting me that adrenaline rush that I was getting from cigarettes. And so eventually I just stopped buying cigarettes and bought a new vape pen and switched directly to vape. I started changing the nicotine levels, going up, and then going down, and to eventually this year, I don't vape anymore. I don't smoke cigarettes or any of that shit. And yes, it takes a while, because attempting to quit cigarettes the first day sucks. The second day is worse. But after the second day, the third day, it gets easier and easier and easier. And then you will have enough willpower to quit. And as I said in this podcast and the previous podcast, I talked about building a business. I'm not saying everybody has to go out and build a business to help quit smoking. I'm just saying that was something that worked for me. And that was something I used to help quit smoking. And help move forward with everything in my life. Another thing too, just like you see messages on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, there's people out there that had kids and they ended up changing their lives around because they had a kid. But that does not work for everybody. No. So always start with small risks, and then if you feel like you're strong enough to take a big risk, such as quitting whatever addiction that you may have, go for it. Not every step program works for everybody. Not every rehabilitation thing works for everybody. That's why when you see people that are on drugs go to rehab, they come out and they're still on drugs because they have that mindset of they don't want to change, or the program just wasn't working for them. So always try multiple ways of doing something. Always think of different scenarios to get over something or do something good, and eventually you will be on top. Thank you for listening, and have a great day. Oh, and I just came up with this podcast today, or just came up with this episode today. I'm not really following a script, so if I am repeating myself by accident, my bad. This is all coming from my heart and soul. So, thank you for listening. Have a great day.